come back. So I think it's very difficult. So as I say, it will take about 6 to 9 months. And the other question is, we are talking about retaining the manpower in our business. This is a very difficult problem. This is a very difficult situation, and it is a very difficult situation that all the businessmen have to deal with. But if we would like to solve the problem, I think one of the possibility we need to have a tripartite cooperation. What do you mean by tripartite cooperation? That means to say, being an employer, we must allow to have either pay cut or either unpaid leave exercise. And our employer also have to compromise and have to allow the company to do cut pay exercise. Of course, we also look for government stimulate package that whatever government subsidy, you have to come in high or based on the different nature. We are in the travel line. There are countries who are able to give subsidize about 60 to 90% for 6 months. There are countries who are giving 75% of salary support package. That's why we also look forward that our government is able to have more friendly stimulate package to our agency or to all the industrial players in Malaysia.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up question there. At the moment, your company alone and the companies that you deal with, can you give us an indication now of the sorts of different exercises that you are taking with your staff? Are you going through retrenchment? How hard are you trying to retain your staff? And what are some of the measures that you are doing to try and keep your staff gainfully employed during this very trying period?
Yes, for tourism, I think one of the big component for our expenses is manpower. I think most of the industrial players, I mean, if I have to talk about agency, I think 65% of our cost is manpower. So as I mentioned just now, our COVID-19 in fact started on the 22nd of January. That means to say by March, our business is already being affected. So there are companies who already started doing pay cut or unpaid leave exercise. But there are companies who are just doing this exercise by March and April. But foreseeing that, I think easily you are talking about 40% of the company would either go for unpaid leave or pay cut, or even for a very drastic measurement not to have detriment in the very near future.
So leading on to a point that you said earlier on, how long do you think travel agencies can hold out given the situation before we see more travel agencies starting to either close down or to retrench more of their staff?
Yeah, as I mentioned just now, and for travel agency to operate, I think 65% of our cost is manpower. And at this moment of time, our situation is called zero business situation. It means to say whatever business we used to have, the customers already start cancelling. When do cancel also, they are asking for refund. So that is going to affect our cash flow also. And the other thing, as I mentioned, ever since the COVID-19, the business don't come in at all. And we also foreseen that that's going to last for another 6 to 9 months. So I think as an agency, we really have no choice. So it's either we talk to our employee to have the pay cut or to have the unpaid leave exercise. So I think that will going to be even more serious by this month or next month. Most of the agency will not be able to hold for many months. I will expect that a small, medium-sized agency will only be able to hold for 2 to 3 months.
Okay, one last question, Dr. Sri. You also mentioned the wage subsidy earlier on. Now, with the current structure of the wage subsidy, meaning that you have 3 months wage subsidy, but you have to retain your employees at full pay. They can't go on unpaid leave, and they can't be retrenched. How does that, or does that help the travel agency situation at this point?
I must take the opportunity to say thank you to our government that they have come out the stimulate package to all the SME and SMI. But it is very sad that the agency business is being affected since February. So in fact, a lot of agency already start doing their pay cut or unpaid leave exercise. So in order to qualify for our this stimulate package called WSP, and in fact, we are not allowed to have cut pay or unpaid leave system. That means to say most of the travel agency, whether it is small or middle, and as long as you already started doing the exercise, you are not qualified for this stimulate package. That means to say agency, whether you're inbound or outbound, you are not really having any support, you are not enjoying any subsidy from the government stimulate package.
Okay, thank you very much, Datuk Sri.
Okay, thank you.
Now, with the wage subsidy, we've also received a lot of feedback. It's a 50-50, but many people are quoting neighboring countries like Singapore and even some countries as far away as the UK, which are offering much higher wage subsidies to the travel and tourism industry in order for the industry to remain competitive. Now, that being said, though, we understand that the government may still be looking at different ways to assist the tourism industry. And on that note, I would like to invite YB Nancy, our minister, to give us an idea of what the ministry or the government is currently doing, any policies they may be putting in place, or any new strategies they may have in order to help the travel industry, the tourism industry, weather this storm. YB, over to you.
Well, thank you very much. I've heard Datuk just now. He was also mentioning about the wage subsidy, and of course the government has tried its very best as possible to mitigate the situation. Well, I think Nigel meant that I kept saying that we feel the difficulties faced by those affected, and MOTEC is striving hard to ensure that we can help spur the economy by working together with the stakeholders to put Malaysian economy back on track. Of course, it is not really that simple. Because we feel the suffering, one business closed, many families are affected, many more Malaysians will be out of job, many will be deprived of food on the table. And the government has also announced the package, the stimulus package, from the earlier ones until the latest, as per what we have discussed. I remember the industry players came to me, and I brought the Minister of Finance to also discuss with us so that we could hear what exactly is needed by the industry players. Of course, having heard the feedback from the industry players, we tried our very best, and then as MOTEC, from what the Ministry of Finance came up with for the general public and those who are badly affected, regardless of which industry they are from, people have been, almost everyone has been taken into account. Now, for MOTEC itself, we took this opportunity to plan. We have this tourism recovery plan for tourism manpower. And we are already planning to use this time to enhance the quality of tourism services through online training for tourism manpower, especially the frontliners. Actually, we have submitted our proposals to the through the Economic Action Council, or EAC, for minimum training allowances for us to run the training online, especially to assist the the tourist guides. I was just talking to Dato' before the session started. You see, I think it's time for us to re-look into the whole strategy of rebounding the economy through tourism. So we are constantly discussing on the strategy and also the action plan. Now, if we heard from other countries as well, everybody's talking about domestic tourism. So we are now focusing on how we can try to refocus on training, especially to focus on domestic tourism, looking into the assets or the strengths of the culture that we have, the spots or locations in every place locally, because people are already talking about domestic tourism. And apart from that, we are also looking into exempting license fee for tourist guide, tour operators and travel agencies. This is something that we're also putting up. We hope that that will be approved. But all these are already in place that whereby we have already submitted to make sure that this will lighten the burden of the industry players. And of course, maybe some of you also know that there are also matching grants known as Galakan Melancong Malaysia, the Gamelan, and also grant sokongan pelancongan seni dan budaya for domestic marketing and promotion activities, and also MICE domestic programs, as well as organizing tourism, arts and cultural programs, events in Malaysia. Apart from that, we are also looking into how to restore confidence of tourists to travel again. Even tourists, the local tourists, to travel within the country. I think in the if you see the new norm, the people are now getting very cautious. They are worried about the environment. If you see people, because of the SOPs under MCO, it trains people to give priority to health, okay, to health safety. And well, while looking at the health of people, whereby we want to give priority to the health of the people, but we also cannot neglect the health of the economy. So further on, we also look into how we can strengthen or boost domestic tourism via Cuti Cuti Malaysia campaign. Back to this Cuti Cuti Malaysia campaign, well, too bad we have to cancel the Visit Malaysia Year 2020 campaign. But the thing is, now I think it is time for us to refocus on domestic tourism, whereby we are strategizing on the various aspects. Not only we're looking at tourism spots in rural areas or in areas that have never been explored before, we are also looking into storytelling. You know, storytelling in terms of the toko-toko in certain areas, in the areas whereby we tend to neglect before this. The toko that have influence over the people who had legacies in their own wherever they are from. And this eventually, apart from being a local tourism, eventually one day this will also pull foreign tourists to come to all these small places. Again, this is where the travel agents will also have to work together with us. We do the promotion for you. We do the promotion, but we need more innovative and also creative programs, thinking and programs by the industry players vis-a-vis the tourism, the travel agencies, the tour operators, you know, and tourist guides. I think they need to explore further what are the things that we can look into. And apart from that, we would also like to encourage all tourism and industry to work with MOTEC as a family to explore effective solutions amid the COVID-19. Now, actually, if you see it, I mean, if any of you follow our website under MOTEC, we have the various agencies. We are doing online competition during the MCO. The reason being, we want to stimulate economy among the people, especially, for example, we have the artists, you know, we have theater artists, we have uh, the artists who have their paintings in our balai seni lukis, in the museum, those who have stories about the museum, those who have something that they can share with the people. Even singing, now singing, we bring people together to sing, but they are all competing with each other. And apart from that, now we are also looking into, well, actually it's an ongoing thing now, weavers. Weavers, we are not just marketing online for them, but we are also assisting them to market online while they are weaving, so that there will be interactive online marketing for them. So apart from all this, we have all our agencies involved in online competition and we give them prizes. As I shared with my team in MOTEC, we need to help the people to put food on their table because we feel for them. And then, you know, all this celebration of the festivals are coming up, even though it's still during MCO, but people still want to eat, you know, maybe in their own homes. They need money. They need to help their family. They need to they need their some more. I mean, they need to help the family to get together, and all this need money. So we try our very best to help the people to at least stimulate the economy within the country. So these, well, these are amongst them. Actually, there are more. There are more that I can share with you. But the main thing is we want to make sure that our industry players are working together with us. We will be doing the promotion for you. You know, we even talked this morning. I was with a group of people who promoted, who suggested to us that we should have selamat silaturahim, they call it. It's a new thing that, you know, that gets people together, the local communities to get together through online. Okay, a lot of activities are done online now, but we try our very best to share with the people what they can do. And on just slightly before we started, I shared about how this new approach will also be used to strengthen family bonding, and maybe Raya will be different from before, apart from having it online. And if they want to go back to their kampong, perhaps this is the time travel agents will have to relook into the usage of tour buses, because I think tour buses are very badly hit, and also the tour guides, they need to learn new stories now, new things to explore locally. So I think these are things. I don't want to touch on stimulus package anymore, because I think we have heard so much about it, unless you want me to talk about, you know, all those that had been assisted, you know, the assistance given to the people. So I think those are new things that we are doing in terms of plans. Actually, there are more to that we are planning, but we just hope that we can let the people get together through online. This time online is very interesting. They can take pictures, and they can participate through online and show to the people what are among the best places in where they are staying. So I think, Nigel, I can stop there for the time being, perhaps there are questions later, then we can move on. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you, YB. YB, just before you move on to Datuk Sham, just a point there. We've actually had quite a lot of innovation as far as travel agencies are concerned. Last couple of days, we actually got news that travel agencies are now using their manpower to deliver vegetables. So if you need creativity at the end of the pandemic, you can count on us. That being said though, YB, we do have one pressing question that we would like you to quickly comment on. There have been calls by the industry because the EIS, although it has helped about half the industry, there are indications that the industry says they require a longer period for this EIS in order to sustain the tourism workforce. And that's because even with domestic tourism in play, many of the industry players, especially those among the travel agencies, will still not be able to recoup enough, given that most domestic travelers will travel independently. So my question, YB, is that even with the economic stimulus package announced as it is, would you be able to give us an indication if there is anything else that the government may be considering in the pipeline? For example, an extension to the EIS. Maybe your thoughts on that quickly?
Yeah, I forgot to mention to you that actually we have submitted another request. Okay, it's a long list of requests based on what we have obtained from the industry players, because they have been giving us feedback and we don't want to miss it out. Okay, we know there are quite a number that which, if I mention, is quite a long list that had been given to me, and I've already forwarded to the Minister of Finance. We hope to hear from him. Actually, I was supposed to get in touch with him to get his approval, but of course he cannot approve alone, because we are talking about financial projection. We're also talking about the impact on our country's finance. But rest assured that I have already forwarded that. I cannot promise because I'm not the authority to do so, but we have already actually I've submitted it again last week, and I was told that we will try to reconsider. And of course, I've been very hard. You have heard what he said about how I've been pushing, because I think it's time for us to try to see how the country can assist all industries, especially the worst badly affected industry, that is our tourism industry. And as you know, we have been receiving so many guests before that in 2019, and now it's almost zero because everything is already all are pressured under the lockdown. And apart from that, as I said, I forgot to mention also whereby we requested the hotels to be used as quarantine center, because this is also one way for us to assist. Of course, not all hotels are qualified because of the distance, but that's the reason why we want the hotels to be used. Actually, even the buses, I was thinking of the buses as well, but of course we'll have to see, but no promise on that. I've been pushing for buses to be used as well, but no promise, because if we want the buses to be used, as I said, it has to be paid by the government as well. Of course, they have to work out on that as well, because they have to give priority. Based on what you have questioned me, I've already put it up in my request. I think I have more than 10 in my list, the latest list that I've submitted last week. And I hope to hear from the minister to indicate to me what are the things that might be granted and what are the things that they might be able to consider in terms of maybe extending the time for repayment. Well, all those I can hint to you. That's the only thing that I can hint to you for now. But we are working on it. But I hope that everyone, industry players, whatever that you think that perhaps that need to be assisted, perhaps we have left it out, please bring it forward. Of course I cannot promise, but at least we try. There's no harm trying. You see, no harm trying. We just hope that everybody will be able to feel, or at least they feel that they have been heard, you know, like what we did before that. We did not give up, you know, after the first stimulus. After that, we still feel that, you know, the industry players are mostly, some of them, they are not being included in any of the classes of those who are given assistance because of the confusion. So we have tackled that, and then we want to tackle more of those who have not been, which we have not been able to decide yet. I know you're talking about, some of them talking about the cancellation of the flights, and they're asking for refund, you know. This is something that is not easy for you to decide. I'm not so sure of what else can be done. Perhaps the lawyer can advise us on if they do not comply, perhaps they go by by their contracts. But all these require us to sit down together and then brainstorm how best can we solve the problem. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, YB. We wish you luck. Our fingers are crossed. Please continue
Thank you.
to
Pray.
fight on our behalf.
Pray. The best thing is to pray. Yeah, thank
We
you
will.
very much, Angela. Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gents, we're going to move the discussion a little bit now, and we're going to look at some of the realities that employers are facing. We're going to mix it up a little bit because we've got questions that are coming in hard and fast, so I'm just going to push the questions in here, like what we did with YD and Nancy earlier on. Let's go to Datuk Sham. Datuk Sham,
yes.
A quick question here. What is the perspective of the MEF with regards to the current situation and the stimuli that was announced by the government, especially with regards to tourism businesses, especially for service-oriented businesses like travel agencies and tour operators? Is it a sustainable solution or are more measures required? And also, if there's any other particular circumstance that you've come across that is unique or particularly affecting the tourism industry and its ability to retain talent. Datuk Sham, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Of course, Datuk Sri Nancy had mentioned about the fact that the tourism industry was very badly affected. I couldn't disagree with that. And if you look at the current figures of retrenchment, up to March the year, there were about more than 15,000 employees already retrenched. And the biggest industry that contributed to that is the tourism industry. More than 5,000 employees were retrenched already in this sector. Of course, the second one was the manufacturing sector. But this is just, I would say, the tip of the iceberg. And we had seen that quite a number of big hotels decided to call it off already. And of course, they will add to the numbers of retrenchment. And of course, MIA had come up with a forecast that if we are not handling this particular issue well, then possibly there will be more than 2.4 million employees retrenched this year. And that is, I think, very worrying. But on the other hand, of course, we also have this forecast by the DOSH, Department of Statistics, which says that possibly this year we will see something like 1.1 million employees retrenched from all over the sector. And if we take this particular phenomena, then of course we are talking about what is the prospect of employment for everybody this year. Yeah, of course, currently we have about 500,000 people unemployed. Those are the unemployment rate currently. And of course, we would say that this year, for the new entrants to the labor market, which is about 500,000, it's very, very difficult for them to get a job. That is only 1 million, plus the 1 million that is being forecasted to have been entrenched this year. So this year, we are talking about something like 13% unemployment, 2 million or more. Yeah? And that is what is the current rate of unemployment in the USA, actually, arising from this COVID-19. And of course, we are talking about the stimulus packages, especially for the tourism industry. I would say that the 15% reduction in electricity, the tax incentive for the individual of 1,000, I think that is, I would say, very negligible impact. And I would say that, yeah, because I think it's not going to attract what Datuk Sri Nancy said just now, but trying to attract local tourism. It needs to be something beyond that. And of course, you're talking about the wage subsidy and also the other subsidies. Let me just talk a bit about the employment retention program, the ERP. Yeah, it's I would say on paper a very good program. Yeah, because it gives the chance for the employees to be subsidized with 600 ringgit for 6 months. Yeah, but what is the reality? The reality is basically that fund allocated for ERP, about 120 million only, was completely being, I would say, earmarked to be disbursed by April 6. So by April 6, already there were 300,000 employees listed under that program, and anybody that applied beyond 6 of April, the chances of their application being approved is very negligible unless the government pump in more money into that ERP. So that I think is something perhaps the government need to look at seriously in trying to encourage employers not to retrench employees, but retain their employees on a longer term. And let us just quickly look at the subsidy. Yeah. What is the amount of subsidy the government had given the private sector, including the tourism industry? The first subsidy was 5.9 billion and was increased by another 7.9 billion, 13.5 billion, 13.8 billion. But is that enough to actually attract employers, not to retrench employees? Yeah. And I would say that that fund, it is appreciated, but it's too little to be of significant to encourage employers not to retrench. We are talking about a subsidy of less than 17% of the wages bill in the private sector. We are talking about at least 27.5 billion subsidy in a year. So that I think is something that perhaps we need to relook, and perhaps the government need to actually come up with a more attractive wages subsidy, like what had been mentioned earlier, talking about possibly 80% like in UK, talking about up to 75% in Singapore, thing like that. So it's important for the government to really rescue the private sector for the time being, because if without the private sector, then the 90% of the job opportunities in the private sector or the whole of Malaysia is at stake, because the government only offered about 10% of the job opportunities. So the private sector is actually the engine of employment as far as Malaysia is concerned, and this need to actually be assisted for them to retain their employees on a longer note. But of course, another part, of course, we had heard about wage cut, wage reduction, unpaid leave, thing like that. But the situation is basically when the government first announced the MCO, the Ministry of Human Resources and the National Security Council came up with a statement to say that no, you employers must pay full wages and allowances during the MCO. So here we are during the MCO, like Datuk Sri Ko had mentioned, that it's zero revenue basically during this period, zero base. So how are you going to pay your wages when actually it is about 60%, for example, in the tourism industry, that it must be coming from the revenue. So without the revenue and you are expected to actually pay wages, of course, it is not, I would say, a good business sense if you actually borrow from the bank to pay the wages. It is not possible in that manner. So I would say that more things to be done on that aspect. Yes, of course, the suspension of HRDF for 6 months, that would assist a bit the industry, but HRDF is only 1%. So as MEF, actually, we had suggested that why not we relook at our EPF contribution? Because as employers, we also contributed about 12% for employees above 5,000, and below 5,000 ringgit, we pay 13%. So that is quite a big chunk. So as MEF, we say that, okay, we need to be fair. We need to actually reduce that EPF contribution by reducing it to 5%. Ironically, in the stimulus package, second stimulus package announced by the Prime Minister, giving the example that actually the Mikolok seller and things like that can save some money from the EPF exemption. But if you look at the text of the speech, there's nothing mentioned about EPF exemption. So this is something that possibly the government need to relook at, that whether it is possible or not for the government to now say that, okay, look, let us look at the EPF employees' contribution for the time being, and perhaps we try to reduce it to a more manageable level. So that, of course, I think the more important part is whether we remain employed or not for the time being, rather than really looking at the old age. Because if we are not having any employment at all, then there is no point for us to talk about EPF savings, things like that. And of course, the important part is also basically, you know, when we have the MCO, Datuk Sri Nancy talks about trying to balance between the health of the employees, the health of the public, and that of the health of the economy. Of course, the health of the economy currently is bleeding, and we seem to be quite successful in terms of managing COVID-19 infection. So that, I think, is something that I think is a good effort by the government as a whole. And of course, what can happen after this is hopefully that, yes, we can still have the MCO on, but for employers to kickstart their businesses, they need to be allowed to operate. Yeah, is it in the current form? Of course, the current form is, I would say, very, very confusing, very, very difficult for us to get through the program. Because, say, for example, you know, when we were asked to apply to MITI for us to be exempted from the MCO, then of course, you know, the first day the MITI website crashed, yeah, and of course, you know, currently there are a lot of issues about that. So as MEF, we had even suggested to the government to say that, why not you just allow us to operate on a smaller scale basis, yeah? Say, for example, 30% or 1/3 of the workforce are allowed to actually go for work, but then the whole country may be still under MCO, but the company should be allowed to operate, so that once you are able to operate, then you are going to be able to save the jobs. Yeah? So that, I think, is very, very critical. And to me, there is no point for us to go and apply to MITI, thing like that. MITI should have just set the parameters. What are the conditions for you to operate? And employers that are willing to abide by the condition can just go and operate. Yeah? And of course, it is up to the government to enforce their SOP kind of thing. And if any employer is found to be flouting the condition, then they can be asked to stop working. Yeah, so this, I think, is very, very important for us to kickstart the economy. If we are not able to do that, then of course it's going to be very difficult for us to actually maintain the economy, or even talking about trying to encourage domestic tourism. So that's all, Nigel, for the time being. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Datuk Sham. In fact, we had quite a number of questions that we wanted to ask you, but it seems that you've already addressed most of them. We'll get back to you shortly because the questions are still coming in hard and fast. Just a quick request for our panelists. There seems to be a little bit of background noise. So if you're not speaking, we request that you mute your mic.
No problem. Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, now, like I said, the questions are still coming in hard and fast, but before we go to some of these questions, we'd like to actually take a look at the practicality of what our labor laws are in this current situation and how they apply. So the next person I'd like to invite to give a little bit of insight into this is Mr. Senthil. And basically the question is, are our current labor laws practical during this time of crisis? And what should businesses do if they are considering restructuring their workforce? What are some of the options that we as business owners have? Over to you, Senthil.
Thanks, Nigel. Let me break it up into two parts. The practicality of the labor laws at this particular time has been called into question because a lot of employers feel that their hands have been tied by a lot of requirements. The labor laws are there essentially to protect the employees. Once the protections that are there in the legislation, in the case law are set out, employers also know the parameters within which they have to work. So the basic underlying principle is that it's there to protect employees, gives the guidelines for the employers, and these laws are supposed to apply to all sectors or categories of employees at all times. At this particular moment in time, we are facing something we have not faced before. So like I said earlier, the laws are in the way of certain employers trying to implement certain things. But I think the important thing to remember is this is not something that employers can do on their own. There are certain provisions in the law that allow you to take certain steps, but there are also certain protections for the employees which require you to engage with the employees in implementing what you want to implement. I think, as Dato Sri Ko mentioned in the beginning, a lot of companies have already started putting into place programs, either whether it's wage cut, paid leave from March. So it already shows that there is a give and take between employer and employee. So the practicality of the laws, I think, are a little irrelevant at the moment. What is important is the relationship between employer and employee. The second part of your question is a little longer, and I think it also is going to overlap with some of the questions that are coming out from your from the attendees of the forum. What do you do when you're considering structuring of the workforce? I know these are times when you want to cut costs, but ideally you should talk to a lawyer or an HR practitioner. If you can't get hold of one, look for resources that can help you. I mean, MATTA has put out an FAQ, which is quite useful, sets out some of the things that you can do, gives you an overview of steps and things that you can have to know, have to account for, and the gaps that are there, you can try and fill up by other resources or speaking to someone to make sure that whatever you do it in a manner that's compliant with laws, which is important because you don't want to take steps which in the short term save you money, or in the long term cause you to have more exposure or more liability. What else do you do when you want to restructure your workforce? Communication with your work staff. That I think is one of the key things to do, because a lot of the steps that companies explore when they are trying to reduce costs are things like reducing work hours, limiting working days, unpaid leave for an agreed period. These are things that you cannot do on your own. These are things that you need to talk to your employees about, because employment is a contractual relationship. And like any contract, one party can't decide they want to change it on their own. It involves both parties agreeing. So communication with your employees is important. Assess your financial position, know what you need, how much cost you have to cut, and what you need to do to achieve the cost savings. Because saving the tourism workforce is not just about, okay, I'm going to have to do a retrenchment. I am going to have to let certain staff go. You can't just look at it from the perspective of the staff you have to let go, because you're still trying to save a business, trying to keep the business running, for the employees that are there, and try and ride out this period so that when things turn around, you're ready to catch up, just go.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Senthil. Just leading on to that question, though, there are one or two questions that were submitted earlier on. And these we did not address in our guidelines, but it's an interesting question nonetheless. One of these questions was, and I quote, "I have no more money and I have to retrench employees. What will happen if I can't pay retrenchment benefits?"
Okay. Maybe that was Syam wants to take.
Because just to answer that, because basically, of course, it's not as simple as that.
Yes.
But employees, they are entitled to go either to Labour Department or to the Labour Court or the Industrial Court. Yeah, and of course, there are provisions within the law, in the Industrial Relations Act, and also under the Employment Act that actually allows the government to actually go after the individual directors and also the individual top managers of the company, because they are jointly and severally liable. It means that if the company have no money, then the directors or the top managers will be personally liable to pay for the termination benefits or the retrenchment benefit. But of course, this is meant more for the people under the Employment Act. For those people who are above 2,000 ringgit, generally speaking, there is no provision for retrenchment benefit or termination benefit. That depends on their contract. Well, of course, I mean, the least that the employees be entitled is the notice period or payment in the payment in lieu of notice period. So that is in simple form the liability of the company to address the issues of termination benefits or retrenchment benefits when you retrench. Yeah? Thank you. So sorry, Nigel.
It's all right. Thank you. I said it better myself.
Okay, fantastic. Look, we're just going to shift focus a little bit here while we get through some of the many questions that are coming through. Let's look at the slightly more positive side of things. Now that employees are stuck at home on MCO, we've got some questions coming through that ask, what can we practically get our employees to do now that they are working from home? And when the MCO is lifted, return to the workforce is still going to be gradual. How do we gradually rebuild operations given the current situation? Maybe on this note, Dato Sri Ko, can you share with us some of the things that your company is doing, planning for what your employees should be doing now, and when the workforce is able to come back to work physically?
Yeah, yes. In fact, I think most of the agency are now having a home working situation at this moment, because even after the MCO is lifted, I don't think that we will allow full force people in the office, because they was talking about the safety concerns also. So I think most of the agency now is talking about the SOP in the office. It means to say we also wanted to allow minimum people in the office, and to make sure that everything is being done in the safety manner.
Thank you very much, Dato Sri. Anybody else would like to chip in here? Maybe perhaps Dato Sham, have you heard of anything that other employers are doing to keep employees occupied constructively during this time?
Yeah, perhaps just to share one, I would say, which is considered as a best practice even in the world, where if you are talking about the financial crisis in 98, 99, this particular company was involved in the high-end car, servicing. And of course, they have many, I would say, expert technicians within their employment. But of course, even during the good times, even the rich people cannot send their car for servicing, things like that. And of course, what the company had done was to consider whether they want to retrench this employee or to retain them. So what the company had done was to actually pay a certain amount of wages, certain percentage, and allow the employee to be on long-term leave. And during that period, the employee is allowed to do any work at all, not related to the company's work, but any work at all outside, and they still pay certain amount of wages during that period. And of course, with the intention that when the economy recover, then the employee would still have the ready employees that are very skillful and can be called back to work anytime. And that's what exactly happened. And this particular practice was in fact recognized by the ILO as one of the best practices to be implemented by companies during the hard times. So in the sense that actually retrenchment is not something that is encouraged. This is a matter of last resort. And basically, of course, if you can, you should retain your skilled employee so that when the economy recover, then you quickly can actually get the benefits of the economic recovery. Otherwise, then you have to re-employ, retrain, and see whether your new recruits are suitable for your requirements or not. And that is a very costly affair, actually.
Okay, thank you very much, Dato Sham. YB, you wanted to say something?
Hearing what Dato Sham said, I agree with him. I think we need to keep them involved and keep them busy and occupied with new things. If they depends on what they're interested to do. That's why back to MOTEC, what we are doing, we are encouraging people to participate in our programs, in our activities, apart from us paying them money. But at the same time, we are trying to encourage people to be fully occupied with all sorts of talents. When we talk about artists, talking about artists, we are trying to get them to spread that kind of talents. When they appear in the video, they can also try to influence the others to encourage new skills for them. So that is one example. And there's also even dancing. The steps, the dancing steps is part of what the culture is all about. We're talking about how they, for example, joget, because this is in this kind of break that we are having, apart from doing something that is more depressing, all the activities that we're trying to introduce through online activities that could help people to create new talents among the people. Well, besides that, if you heard earlier on, I've talked about storytelling, and I thought it was just something that is just a thought from myself. But when we had our video conferencing, our meeting with the others from the other countries and internationally, they are also talking about storytelling, because this is a new way for people to think about how best they can improve and also promote their own local communities, even in terms of food. And I think now you can see a lot of talents in terms of those who can cook, because this will be, we can build new talents, because having involved in culinary, it can also help people to earn a living. And a lot of things that can be done during the break, the MCO break, that we can see new talents building up, apart from those who are talented in music, but at the same time, they are also doing deep critical thinking about what can we do for our own country. And this is going back to our own country. The best thing is when I heard a lot of views from people talking about building relationships, which I mentioned earlier on. But not only that, that relationship is not just among their siblings, but with the extended families. People are now focusing on even looking into family trees. So these are something that would create values among the people. I'm trying to see how else can they participate in our activities through the things that we are already sharing with people. But main thing is, of course, we are trying to get people to earn a living, or even to earn something extra for themselves during this MCO break. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Waidi. We've also heard, yes, a lot of people are starting to look at other options within the tourism sector. So we can only hope that at this point in time, people will start to innovate and be creative. That being said, Waidi, there is a question that came in specifically regarding what the government is doing. I'm going to paraphrase it because there are a few questions like this. From Timothy Teo, for example, we've got a question coming in that says, we've read in the national papers that the government is looking to use money set aside for Tourism Malaysia's promotion and marketing to pay for the current stimulus. Another question is the government using the tourism sector allocation to fund the stimulus package? And shouldn't the government use the money for tourism companies first?
Yeah, at the moment, Nigel, thank you for that question. At the moment, we have to justify why we should keep the money for ourselves. I mean, when I say for ourselves, it's more for tourism industry, because at the moment, actually, it has not been used for stimulus package. We are intending to assist our own industry players in terms of providing them assistance to assist among the tour guides, even among the tour operators or the travel agents. We have all those in our plans, but of course, again, we have to justify this on why we should keep it and why we should be using it, maybe using about how many % of it for our industry players. We have submitted that, and again, we have not had any response for that. But it is gearing towards that. It's gearing towards that. Certain percentage of it, because we are no longer using it for Visit Malaysia Year, but of course promotion has to be continuously carried out. Otherwise, the industry will not be growing. So with regards to the funds, we still have the funds with us. We cannot simply use it for anything else except if we have the permission to do whatever we want to do. And because we are supposed to return some part of our funds to the federal, to the government, and of course they have their own plans to maybe to assist the people further. But on our part in MOTEC, it's still with us. We have not done anything yet. Of course, some of it we are using it for our activities in terms of what we are already doing now. But there's still a lot of it, because I mean, as you know, the funds have been allocated for our Visit Malaysia Year 2020, and we are going to use it to the best for the tourism industry players, for them to look into their own, I'm sure, in terms of their financial liabilities, you know, those with regard to their tourism activities. So this is what we have put forward. So I told you the list was very long. We have put forward, and we have not received anything yet, because it was just not last week. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, YB. Guys, we're going to wrap this up very soon. And before we take a round with the panelists, we'll give you a bit of a parting message. We do have one more slightly off-topic question by an anonymous attendee, again for YB Minister, which is not actually related to this topic, but a very interesting question. If you could give us an insight as well. It actually reads, what is MOTEC doing to assure inbound visitors that Malaysia is safe to visit? Will we be giving out masks or sanitizers? Post-SARS post-SARS in 2003, Hong Kong made huge efforts to draw back tourism and ensure visitors there was increased hygiene. So a little bit off topic, YB, but important because inbound is the lifeblood of the country. If you could.
Yeah, for now, we are not doing that because it's already been done through other agencies like NATMA, whatever is given, even sponsored by any CSR projects, it's going to NATMA because it is not directly dealt through us at the moment. Well, we hope that this will be a habit among the people, and I think the people who are planning for travels in the future, this is what they're looking for. Apart from looking for places for them to visit, they want to make sure that the place is safe for them to visit, and also hygienically, we need to make sure that we enhance in terms of hygiene, so that this will build the confidence among the people to visit the place again, because as they recall, when they have been to the place and it's nice and they want to go again. But all these factors, hygiene factors, will be top priority to them. And at the moment, in terms of giving away sanitizers or masks, we are not doing it yet because everything is under lockdown break. But the thing is, well, perhaps maybe in the future, this will be trend among us. Well, I hope that that will be one of our agenda in the future. Thank you for that particular question that will make us remind us about what we're going to do in the future. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, YB. So ladies and gents, we're going to wrap up very shortly. But just before we do, maybe a quick takeaway point from each panelist, something that you feel is very pertinent to the travel industry, particularly travel agents, on how they can look at retaining, mitigating the effects of this manpower loss in this current situation. Maybe we'll start with Dr. Sriko. Some practical advice from you.
Basically, first of all, I would like to say thank you for MATTA to organize this bread and butter conference. And in fact, I would totally agree with what Dato' Haji Samsudin is saying, that most of the SME and FMI, or especially the tourism player, are having a very difficult situation. And at the same time, also we hear YB and what the government are doing. But if you would allow me to say on behalf of travel agency, then of course, I think at the present stimulus package, it is not very friendly. It is not really helping the travel agency. And I still remember in fact, our MATTA association is putting a request for tourism to have 20,000 as a token, one-time token to support the travel agency. Will be able to support 60% of the payroll for 6 months. As we also understand that other countries are giving 60 to 90%, or our neighboring country support 75% up to 9 months. And I wish our YB will be passing the message to the government. If not, our agency, our tourism industry is really having a very difficult time. Of course, I think all the players, we have to say positivity, and of course, we have to look forward. We have to have strong determination to make sure that we will be able to overcome this COVID-19. At the same time, we'll be able to get it through for this very difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dato' Sri.
Yep.
Just before we go on to the next panelist, ladies and gents, we've got a quick poll by our media partners, The Star, which has graciously hosted this session for us. So you may see a little quick poll pop up on your screen shortly. It's only 4 or 5 questions. Do take a couple of seconds to answer it while we wrap up this session. So YB, any parting words from you?
Well, I'd like to thank Dato' Ko for his suggestion. It is actually our session is recorded. Hopefully my staff will take that up for me. But anyway, it's time for us to bring back the joy of visiting and traveling again. I appeal to everyone to remain united in managing this situation. No matter how great our measures and effort, including government's funding of so many millions, incentives, and recovery efforts will not mean anything if we lose to COVID-19 and we cannot go back to our lives. Let us beat this one enemy first, then together, you and me, we rebuild the industry again. We can if we do this together. Let us act and pray that the situation will be better soon and tourism will rise above and beyond the effects of COVID-19, inshallah. Thank you very much. And thank you to
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, YB. Over to you, Datuk Sham. Any bits of advice you can give our watchers before we go off?
Thank you. Of course, I mean, COVID-19 and CO pose a very serious challenge, and it is only fair that this cost burden imposed by MCO and COVID-19 should be shared by the employees, by the government and the employers. It is totally unfair to expect the employers to fully share this particular burden, and it's important for us to actually share the burden so that we are able to save employment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Datuk Sham. And last but not least, Mr. Senthil, over to you.
Okay. Going back to the remedies or the options available to employers, I think a few steps that you need to bear in mind, whatever action you decide you want to take. Assess your position, understand the process, consider the options, don't rush into retrenchment because it's not free, there's a cost attached. And at some point you're going to come out of this, you need to make sure that your business is ready to carry on in some form. If you do find yourself in a position where you have to retrench, please make sure that you follow the process. You don't want it coming back to bite you later. And finally, labor laws will help some people and get in the way of other people. The problem faced by the tourism sector at this point, as Dr. Sri Ko mentioned in the beginning, is have zero business. So if you feel that the support from the government is still insufficient, please make your voices heard.
Okay, thank you very much, Senthil. Okay, ladies and gents, this about wraps up our program. But before you go, we have another 2 series upcoming. The second series, which will be sometime next week, and you'll be advised of it, will look at the banking, finance, and leasing, and some of the challenges faced by travel agencies trying to get some of the loans, and whether it is practical or not to actually even apply for them. And on the final series, we will be looking at recovery measures. And YB Nancy, we hope to have you back then. In fact, a lot of the questions tonight actually focus on some of the recovery measures and policies, not just by the private sector, but also more importantly by what the government is planning moving on post-MCO and into the COVID-19 recovery session. So, ladies and gents, we will also be sending out a link for you to download the infographics that MATTA has prepared with regards to the findings we had, as well as a link to our frequently asked questions regarding human resources, labor laws, and what you can do practically in this time of challenge. So once again, thank you very much for tuning in to the series. It's been a pleasure having all of you. To the panelists, thank you very much for your time. And we hope to have you back someday.
Thank you, Nigel.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. On behalf of MATTA and the staff, thank you very much. Good night.
Night.